Hello and welcome to the Week 2 commentary for Underminer. This week, a lot got done. To start with, I created the weapon systems for the ship itself, for both the laser, pulse, and cannon turret. The missile turret and the explosive cannon have yet to be put in, but I'm saving those for after I take care of the other major elements. The laser cannon essentially shoots out a straight line beam that's as long as it takes to reach its next target, leaving a little red trail when it needs to charge. A little particle effect appears from the gun and slowly recharges the weapon. And of course when it's done, it stops. And you can fire it up to a certain number of seconds. So this works pretty well. I'm going to pretty much manually let it charge, blow away the enemies right at the point where it fires. And of course the frames per second are a little lower than usual because of the recording. Let's switch this one for holstered. I have to put in the gun position, same rotation, and the same scale for it to properly work. And holster, it's sort of like a cannon. And when it fires, it kind of charges. As you can see, it kind of glows and pulses. That's the holstered. When it hits the dirt, it creates a little puff. That's the color of the dirt that it hit. And always in the direction that it would has caused better velocity. So, pretty straightforward. It's an energy version of the cannon, essentially. You'll be able to buy different types of armor. Enemies will be weak to certain types. Electronic enemies will generally be weaker against the energy weapons, and local wildlife will generally be weaker against the cannon-type weapons. Switch this one out with the cannon turret. Once again, all you have to do to get these working is assign them to the same position, same rotation, the same scale as the gun pause. You can do this by script extremely easily, which is what I plan to set up when I create the weapon purchasing system. So, fly around, fire little cannon shots. I probably am making them a little bigger to be more noticeable, but right now, these are big enough. Notice the difference in the puffs. In this one, the puff remains in the world space, so it's not as pretty an effect, but it kind of makes sense. And once again, the puffs that are created are determined by the speed of the shot and the type of ground that it hits. If you hit the silver, you'll get a white puff. With the gold, you'll get a kind of orangish yellow puff, etc. Now switching over, don't save. In this one I was testing the error messages that pop up based on your ore mining, and also creating the basis for a shop. You can see the inspiration for the model. Open up your mining Everetti, go down, take it out, and whenever you take something, a little message pops up. Gold received, mana received, silver received, etc. You can just fly around taking care of this. If you'll notice, there's a minor bug right now with the dirt fly, in that if you have your drill downwards and quickly switch to another direction, the puff will remain. That's something I'm taking care of now and probably get fixed before next release. But the messages work just fine. And when you're done mining everything, your cargo bay is full. It keeps track of that just fine. Turn off the miner. The shop. Right now you can just enter it. As you can see, there's nothing inside, but it pops up the GUI button. You can say, okay, I'm done, and then you can leave relatively naturally. If you come in from an angle pretty fast, you kind of bounce, you will take a little damage, like you were hitting a brick, but it will still land. And of course this is in the background, which will be a pretty effect when I finally get it painted, with a little platform sticking out in front. And that's about it for updates. Things proceed along relatively straight. Things are going along pretty well. I just have to put in the shop the rest of the way, fix the little bug with the driller, And then after that's done with, I need to put in the ability to sell the ore and buy the stuff in the shop. It isn't enough just to get it working. After the shop's complete, I'll move on to putting in the objectives, the achievements, the awards, creating a little above ground city that you can go into, and a few other things. The new scripts for week 2 are the shop. It has the information for the top blades and side blades and the rotation speed, so you can customize that. That was good for when I was tweaking the speed. It'll probably remain. Whether or not the shop is open, it turns on the GUI. And of course, when you hit the button, it closes the shop, which basically tells the player, "Wake up, please," which means you can move again, and closes the shop window. End puff is something that I put on the little particles created when you're shooting things. Basically, when you send it, it creates its little particle emitter. It waits just long enough for the puff to go out, turns itself off, waits until it's out of items, and then destroys itself. The projectile code, it's just like any bullet. You have the speed, you have the damage. At the start, you give yourself the speed to fire forward. The master can tell you how much damage you do. When you hit something, you apply damage to it, and then you destroy yourself. The beam weapon's a lot more complex. You have the damage, you have the current damage done, and you have your hit particles. Basically, you're raycasting forward to figure out if there's something there. If something is there, the maximum range, then you move yourself so that you're going to end up exactly at that distance, which in this case is the distance from the point to where you are in magnitude divided by 2 for the local scale.z, essentially saying, beam, stretch yourself this far. In order for that to be possible, because the default stretch for those things is in the center, I took the beam, let me drag it out here, and I created an empty for it. Essentially, the empty goes at the very tip, and the laser beam stretches out above it. So when you scale this and give it scale 2, everything stretches out upwards as opposed to going both directions. And as such, the scale goes just fine. It stretches it out. And for the damage, it increases the cur damage variable by the damage times time by delta time. And when it gets over 1, it applies damage to the object. This also allows for cur damage to be increased at such a rate that it's giving multiple damage per frame. If there's nothing in front of you all the way up to the max distance, set yourself to the default value of 10. Whenever you're done with this, basically whenever you turn off the laser, you call the remove hit function, which removes the particles in the front, tells them to auto-destruct, and removes their parent, essentially allowing the puff to disappear naturally instead of just blinking out of existence. A little effect, but important. And this is just for the little corkscrew around the laser beam. Speed that it rotates, every turn rotated. Very straightforward. This is for the text. The text is given a time it's alive, a point at which it starts to fade, and a speed that is rising. So it just takes care of that. It makes itself increase by the speed that it is rising, decreases its lifetime. When its lifetime is less than the fade point, it starts to become more transparent until it's completely transparent, and then destroys itself. The weapon code is pretty much just like any weapon. Check if you're active, figure out which direction, pretty much where relative to your right vector the mouse is, and based on that, set your local Euler angles based on the angle. I couldn't have it look at, because when you do that, it becomes flattened. It doesn't keep its sideways rotation against the side. So had to use the vector 3.angle technique instead. The weapon types, as described up here in the comments. 0 is projectile, 1 is beam, 2 is pulse, 3 is missile, and 4 is machine gun. I have special cases for each of those. For beam, take care of the charging and creating of the beam and turning off of the beam. If it's pretty much anything but a machine gun, it'll create a projectile. If it is a machine gun, it needs a special fire machine gun script. Function fire beam, this creates the laser. It gives it to the parent. While it's firing, it determines the current charge so it knows when to get rid of it. And when you get rid of it, you tell it to remove its particles and destroy it. Firing barrel in the bullet. Turn on the reloading, create it, set the parent to be the barrel, create the bullet. Well, this one's for the particles, this one's for the bullet. Set the damage of the bullet, wait until it's done reloading, and reload. It opens the shop. And that's what we got. We now have the messages, we now have the weapons, and we now have the new bug caused by new code that needs to be repaired.